Good morning, YouTube. This is going to be a bit of a shop update and channel update for that matter. It is December 13th, 2016, 7:02 in the morning. And I've been in the shop the last few days cleaning up. As it gets towards the winter, I think a lot of ham operators and people that are into electronics tend to do more in the shop, in the ham shack, if you will. And I'm no exception. I've been very busy over the summer. I haven't posted any videos on the channel in a long time. I have a lot of unfinished projects, partially done projects, and I like to try to get everything up to date as far as the channel and as far as the projects go, and that's kind of what this update is about. First, you're going to notice on the bench my little Knight RF generator, signal generator. This needs to be recapped and recalibrated. It works only, I think there's 2 bands that don't work. I don't know. Haven't sorted out what's wrong with it yet, but it doesn't work in all the bands selected. I want to start aligning radios. I've done a lot of recapping. I got into this hobby 4 or 5 years ago and started just recapping and not doing a lot of understanding of the actual electronics and doing actual alignments and stuff like that, and now I'm getting a little deeper into it. I have the equipment to do alignments, but I don't have it all up to snuff, this being one of them. I have a good scope. I have lots of meters. I have that's the H&P 410B, very good meter, lab quality from the 50s. And then swinging over here, even though this is clean, let me get this light on. That's my sweep generator in the corner there on the bottom. It's a rack mounted big thing. I wish it wasn't so big. You know, I was debating whether to get rid of that and just buy one of these Chinese ones off eBay that are small, because they do the same job and they're a lot easier to use and they're cheap. If you need a sweep generator, look on eBay, by the way, at the Chinese made ones. They're for like $25. You can get one sent from Hong Kong that'll probably do more than this one will. This is a lab quality sweep generator, actually. I didn't pay a heck of a lot for it, and it was used, and I think I did a video on this, but I don't know if I ever posted it. It was used by Bard Atomic Company, so it was an actual commercially used generator at one time. That is my signal. It's called a page tester, but it's actually an audio signal tracer as well as a frequency counter. It's actually a frequency counter too. Of course, my scope, which I've done a video on, the old Heathkit one, which works, and my old capacitor tester. So as far as alignments go, I have the sweep generator, I have the scope, I have the signal generator, which isn't that great. I eventually want to get a better one. I have at least 3 radios that I need to do alignments on, probably more eventually, but I need to get this thing working right. I need to get everything situated, and I'm going to do some videos on alignments, hopefully. In that regard, I also bought this off eBay a couple weeks ago, and it just came in the mail yesterday, 2 days ago, I guess. And this is a nice alignment toolkit, which I got a good deal on. Has all the tools I need for tweaking the ferrite slugs, etc., to do alignments. So, little tour. The HQ129X I have hooked up to the Heathkit speaker, and that's working very well. I listen to that all the time. That's my Philco 610B down there, which is working well. I've been continuously running that just to make sure it's working good before I do the cabinet. I haven't done the cabinet on that, but it's essentially done. I've done some videos on that, I think, but I don't think, I'm a bad habit of doing videos and taping videos and then not processing them. A lot of credit goes to these guys that do a lot of video editing and get their videos out, because it's a lot of work. It can be more work than doing the actual restorations on these things. I understand why Jin Lindeness just puts up unedited videos, because it's so much work to edit them and so time consuming. You end up doing that more than you end up actually working on the radios. So these guys that do a really good job of editing and that, my hat's off to you. That is the Zenith, which I am still working on. I've posted videos on that. That's going to eventually be my brother's radio. It's a console radio. That chassis I've done a couple videos on that I have not posted, that I will post. The thing I don't like posting old video is that, you know, it was old. You know, it was done over a couple months ago, but I'll post it anyway. That has actually been mostly rewired and a few capacitors replaced, getting close to being ready to power it up. I have not powered that chassis up yet. Other than when I first got it. I take that back. I did power it up, and it did work, and it does work. But it needs to be gone through and finished. And then the cabinet is going to be the biggest job on that, because it's been painted quite poorly. As far as my ham shack radios go, a little quick update on those. Now, the Kenwood SSB, the Kenwood TS 520, that is the one that I got for free from a ham that was downsizing, and it's in beautiful condition. I have replaced all the high voltage capacitors in that. I have put new final tubes in it, and it's working beautifully. And it worked beautifully when I got it, but I wanted to bring it up to date. And I've replaced the LEDs in it. And that's my main shack radio. And I have a manual matching tuner, which I'm going to go outside and show you my antenna changes since my last video. I have a video up of my antenna in the backyard, and that was the Maple Leaf Studios antenna. It was an off-center fed dipole, which I'm actually not. Don't have up in the air again, and I'll talk about that. It's not up anymore. I have a different one, and I'll talk about that. The Ten-Tec, which is my favorite shortwave receiver, I think. This one is it's the 320RX, shortwave controlled, not software controlled, not software defined. It uses software only, which was cutting edge when this came out in the early 90s, mid 90s really. I'm going to click it on. I did a little upgrade to this. Oh shoot, it's not plugged in. It has a new indicator light bulb. It drove me crazy, the fact, and people have complained about it, that this radio did not have a light indicator, so you didn't know if the radio was on or not. I'm trying to plug it in under my desk. Hang on a minute. Okay, I plugged it in. So it has an LED indicator, which I had to drill a hole in the case to mount. I used to have a white bulb in there, and it was just too bright. The thing would shine in my face, you know. So this is a nice little amber LED, which indicates when the thing's on, so I know it's on. So if the software is not running, you get nothing out of it if the software is not running. So I know if it's off. That radio is a very sensitive, very nice radio that I really enjoy operating, and it's not software defined, it's software controlled, as I began to say. In the mid 90s, when I first decided to become a ham operator, I was listening to shortwave. These things were brand new on the market. They cost about $350, which is a lot of money then. And they were cutting edge, you know, there was nothing like it out there. It was like, here's a radio with no knobs, you know, it was a big deal. Running on your software, you know, and it was the old, you know, Windows 98 software, I think, when these came out. And I wanted one of these, and I wanted to become a ham operator, and I couldn't decide whether to get one of these or to get a ham radio, because I didn't have the license yet, and at that time you needed to know Morse code, and I was trying to learn it. And I ended up buying a Heathkit Morse little small HW9 station, which is Morse code only, low power QRP radio, instead of this. Make a long story short, years later, I came across this thing used on the internet cheap. I bought it for just over $100 instead of $350, and I absolutely love operating it. It's my favorite radio to listen to of all my radios at this time. Above it, that little plastic case is my software-defined ephedri, which I've talked about before, and I don't know if I've ever done videos on. And of course the realistic DX300 from the 70s, which is working quite well now. And then over here we have my ham radio clock, which I bought not that long ago. I had to do some work on it to get it working properly, but it does now work. And it's a 10-minute timer. If those of you who are not into ham radio, you're supposed to identify your station every 10 minutes on the air. You give your call sign. Mine is K2BEW. It says the call ident timer, 10-minute station call reminder. And there's software that does this now, but this thing dates from like the 50s, so it's really kind of neat. And if I turn this on, it lights up and the light goes on. Every 10 minutes a buzzer will go off and remind you to say your call sign on the air. And it works, and it's really neat. And I picked that up, and I don't think I've ever talked about it on eBay. And my speaker, of course, for the Kenwood, and my picture of Dad and I with the crystal radio that I've discussed before. I organized all my papers. Everybody that does this hobby, you know you collect tons of schematics and manuals and stuff. And I had things strewn all over the place, every which way. I finally organized it, put it all in files, and I've categorized it according to the radios: Heathkit, Hewlett-Packard, Kenwood, all the major ones that I own, and then there's a couple miscellaneous ones, and it's just packed full. So now if I need to get a manual out or schematic, I can find it. There's of course the tube tester, one of them, and I have one behind me too. Okay, for future projects, a little discussion. This is a Senior Volt Olmus that I picked up at the Antique Radio Museum in Connecticut when my wife and I were there. We did a tour of it. And this I picked up there pretty darn cheap. You make a donation and you can buy. Oh, they have some stuff in the back they'll sell you for a donation to the museum. Missing the cords, of course. Dates to the 50s, but I plan on doing a restoration on that. I love old meters. I just bought another new meter too that's coming. This is a HP power supply, 0 to 30 volts. This I'm going to mainly use for smaller transistor radios and stuff that I do occasionally like to mess with. And this thing, it powers up, the meter goes, but I'm getting no voltage out. So something is not right in here. It's showing voltage on the power supply, so I suspect there's a disconnect somewhere. There are some capacitors and things in there that may need attention. It looked to be all original when I opened it. I'll do a little video on that. And there's some of my transistor radios, by the way. I do collect those too. They're easy to collect because they're small. There's a few of them there that I do occasionally work on. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else in here. I'm going to be now. I thought I'd mention too. Move the mic. When I operate radio, I operate a lot of digital, and this is my Signalink. The Signalink, you can actually do digital with these old tube hybrid type radios. This connection here goes to the Signalink, goes into my mic. The USB connection goes from this to my laptop, and then I am able to do digital radio. And going into winter, the propagation's better. And about 2 weeks ago, I got New Zealand which is probably the furthest I've ever made a radio contact, and that was on JT65, which is a digital mode which is made for long distance. All you do is exchange the signal report and your call letter stations. You do not exchange much else in that mode, but it's specifically made for long distance and short little burst communications. So I thought that was neat. And then, oh, I should mention up here, this is kind of my antenna setup. That is a grounding plate, I guess, for lack of a better word there. When I disconnect my antennas, I plug them into that, and that heavy strap goes out to my ground rods in the front yard. So the station's grounded when it's not in use, when the antennas are not in use. That is my dummy load back there, and that is has oil in it with 50 ohms network of resistors in it, so I can actually transmit high power into the dummy load. The other neat thing about that, and I don't think I've ever mentioned it, is if you see, you can see a capacitor mounted on the top of that. You can put a meter across that and get a reading off it in voltage, and you can convert it with a little formula and figure out exactly what your output power is, and it's actually more accurate than a Bird watt meter, with the infamous Bird watt meters, which are supposed to be very accurate. This is actually more accurate, and I bought that kit from a guy online, which I'll put up here on the screen. He's actually a Kenwood hybrid guy, and I bought the kit to build that from him, and it works absolutely wonderfully because I can put 100 watts into it with no problem out of this and tune it up, and at the same time I can figure out my exact output power on this, and I'm putting out about 100 watts. This is a 100 watt transceiver, and I'm putting out just about 100 watts on that, on like 20 and 40 meters. Okay, so the plan is, backing up again, we're going to get the test stuff going. I'm going to recap this. I'm going to get my test gear going, and I'm going to start doing some alignments on some older radios that I've worked on in the past, and try to get everything up to date in the shop and keep it up to date over the winter, at least to some degree. This video is being made today. I'm putting it up today and trying not to be behind on my videos. And I'm going to take a little walk outside and show you my antenna update, because I've had a lot of hits and comments on my antenna in the past. Antenna video, that is. So I thought I'd give you a little update on that. I'll be back. I'll meet you outside. Okay, here we are outside, and before I forget, you know, I make these videos and I have a plan of what I'm going to talk about, and then I forget, and I apologize for that. I showed you my sweep generator earlier. The reason I bought that sweep generator in the first place, signal generator, is so that I can align my HQ129X, the Hammarlund HQ129X. You need a sweep generator to align that radio, and that is my plan. Is I'm going to get the other signal generator going, the scope going, and I'm going to align that HQ129X and do a video on that. That is my plan. Okay, this I've done a video on before. It is the mast that I put up, and the difference in it now is I have removed one of the segments. What I found with the other one, I had it about 42 feet tall before, and these are aluminum. You can buy these online. They're surplus Army masts for like, I don't know, 80 to 100 bucks. You can get a set of these, but I found it was too heavy. The antenna was too heavy before, and I had too many segments in it, and it was always bending. Never buckled, but it always looked like it was gonna. So I took one of the segments out, and it's much more stable now. It's probably about 37 feet tall, I think. These segments are like 3.5 feet. They're not quite 4. They're aluminum, and they're all screwed together with stainless steel screws. I now only have one guide rope because that's all I need. The antenna upgrade is a G5RV, which I have used these in the past. This is a full-sized 102-foot G5RV. This is made by TrueTalk. Now these antennas are well known, heavily used in ham radio. You can buy all different brands and types. You can build your own, and a lot of people build their own, and they're easy to build. But quite frankly, for the cost of wire and stuff, buying them is sometimes no more expensive than building them. And I bought this one. This is a TrueTalk one. They're very heavily reviewed on eHam. The gentleman, Terry, or I think his name is, I don't remember, but he is a ham radio guy from upstate New York who lives north of me up in Adirondack country. And I've had his antennas before. The nice thing about this is the off-center, the problem with the Maplewood Studios one that I had before, which is a good antenna, it was much longer. And from the peak of it, I ran it out over the roof of my house to that tree out front. And it was just too much wire for this mast. It was too much weight. It had too heavy balance on it, and it pulled this mast over. It was too much weight. This antenna is much lighter and better suited for this mast. If I had a heavier duty mast, I would probably go back to the other antenna. This one being only 102 feet, the ends of it goes there. You see that shorter mast is made, it's the same aluminum mast material, by the way. That's one end of it. It's an inverted V. And then the other end goes to that tree, the same as the other antenna did. But because it's lighter, it doesn't pull as much, and you can still tell that that mast is a little bent over, but it holds up just fine. You know, I've had windstorms and all kinds of stuff, and I've had no problem with it. A couple big storms came, and I have lowered it, which is the whole point of having it on a tip over. But this is held up very well now. And so if you're going to buy or make one of these, I would say don't make it any more than like 30-some feet tall. I don't remember how many segments that is, because they just get too unstable if they're too tall. It's just not strong enough, this aluminum. I have the tip over mast, as I've shown before, and what I do in a storm is I just pull out that top pin. I actually pound it out with a hammer. Pull out that top pin, the bottom pin stays attached, and this whole thing tips over like on a fulcrum and drops to the ground, and then I have the antennas out of the air for a big storm. So the G5RV, there's ladder line going to it, and then this is a one-to-one balun. One-to-one balun. It's the W2AU balun, and what this does is make the transition to your coax from the ladder line, because if you didn't have this, you'd have a lot of RF on your coax, on the outside of your coax, and get a lot of RF on there coming back. That stops it. And then the other upgrade is this feed line. This is LR400. This is the best quality, lowest loss feed line you can buy. I bought a 100-foot length of it from DX Engineering, and it works just great. This thing, it's really heavy duty, very well shielded, and it has low loss, so you don't lose signal through it. It's 100 feet, so it goes, of course it's buried in the snow now, it goes down to the ground, behind both my sheds, around to the front of the house, and to the front of the ham shack. That section of my house right there is actually where the ham shack is. Not the whole thing, only one corner of that room is the ham shack. And that feed line goes out front to that. So that is the setup here with the antenna and the upgrade. People have asked me about this antenna, if it works for me, etc., etc. I would say again, don't make it too tall. Don't use any more than 30-some feet, or this thing they get too tippy. And you got to stick with lightweight wire. You can't use a heavy wire on it. It's just not strong enough. As far as signal reception and everything, it works great. It worked really well. Okay, that's it for the update here. Thanks for watching the channel. Trying to keep it more updated now, especially over the winter. This is Tom saying 73.